widespread support, leading to Palpatine's victory. The Senate, believing Binks was acting in line with Amidala's wishes, approved the motion, allowing Palpatine to declare war. Palpatine's speech reassured the Senate that he'd laid down the power granted after the war and go on to live out his life on Naboo afterwards. However, as we all know, his promise of peace was a lie. He quickly solidified the clone army as the Republic's military, and the troops alongside the Jedi landed on Geonosis, thus starting the Clone Wars against the Separatist droid army. Chapter 12. The Clone Wars. After the Republic's victory at Geonosis, Darth Tyrannus returned to Coruscant and reported to his master, Darth Sidious, that their plot was now in motion, with the start of the Clone Wars. Sidious expressed satisfaction. The war, while presented as a Republic effort to suppress the Separatists, was in reality a war waged by Sidious against the Republic itself. As the war escalated, Palpatine's popularity soared. With citizens rallying around him as the protector of the Republic, Palpatine also learned of Anakin Skywalker and Padme Amidala's secret marriage, using this knowledge to manipulate Anakin toward the dark side in the future. Meanwhile, Palpatine continued consolidating power, passing laws that further eroded the Senate's authority, and secretly controlled both sides of the war, manipulating different events to ensure the conflict would continue for years. Throughout the Clone Wars, several unforeseen challenges surfaced that Palpatine had to deal with subsequently. This all while also keeping his greater goal in mind to push the young Anakin Skywalker closer to the dark side of the Force. In one incident, Dooku, while loyal to Palpatine, did train a very powerful Sith assassin in the figure of Asajj Ventress, which at some point could have been threatening to him. So he chose to test Dooku by having him kill her. Although Dooku failed to kill her, he guaranteed Dooku's loyalty through it as Dooku cut any ties with her. A completely unforeseen precedent was the re-emergence of Darth Maul, his former apprentice. Although thought to have died on Naboo years ago, he re-emerged and started building a criminal empire alongside his brother, Savage Opress. While at first just a nuisance, Maul's action eventually led him to become the ruler of Mandalore. Sidious saw that it had gone too far and decided to interfere himself to take Maul out of the equation. He had Mas Amedda prepare his personal shuttle to Mandalore, and in a quick duel with the brothers, killed Savage and took Maul prisoner. The reason for not killing Maul was in order to pull the far more powerful Night Sister Mother Talzin out of hiding, the only being powerful enough to potentially challenge his power. The plan worked. Maul escaped and went on to call for Mother Talzin's help. In a final confrontation, Sidious, Dooku, and Grievous engaged Maul and Mother Talzin, ultimately killing Talzin. Maul escaped once again to Mandalore and had little left and was no longer of any concern to Sidious now. The dark side was stronger than ever, and Sidious's ultimate victory was right upon them. Another event that almost exposed the grand plan was the malfunctioning of one of the clones to execute the Clone Order 66 prematurely. This led to a series of investigations where the ARC Trooper 5s even discovered the reason for the inhibitor chips planted in the clones, these being a plot to follow through on the order to eliminate the Jedi once the time has come for it. Fives was ultimately killed though and framed as a lunatic by Palpatine and the Kaminoans, thus the true nature of the inhibitor chips remained the mystery to the Jedi. 3 years of brutality and battle all accumulated in the following outset. The Jedi Order was in disarray, with a lot of members questioning their role as generals in the battles. The life toll of the war was countless, and Anakin Skywalker, the prophesied chosen one that Plagueis had feared, had become a war hero. But he was getting more and more accustomed to the dark side, pushing his limits in the morality of how far one can go to achieve victory. Palpatine sensed the end of the war was drawing near. The things the war was set to achieve were set. Under the guise of Sidious, he ordered General Grievous to navigate a hidden hyperlane through the treacherous deep core and launch a direct assault on Coruscant itself. Now, all that's left in this meticulously crafted plan was its grand finale. Chapter 13. Revenge of the Sith. As the end of the Clone Wars approached, Palpatine orchestrated his own kidnapping at the hands of General Grievous. Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker, having been ordered to rescue him, found Palpatine imprisoned on Grievous's flagship, the Invisible Hand. A duel ensued with Count Dooku, which was orchestrated by Sidious to test Anakin's susceptibility to the dark side. Dooku engaged Anakin and Obi-Wan, believing he would join Sidious in converting Anakin to the dark side and rule as the Sith Master alongside Sidious. But it was only seconds before his death that Dooku figured he was ultimately betrayed by Sidious. Following Dooku's death, Sidious contacted Grievous, instructing him to relocate the Separatist Council to Mustafar and hinting at a more powerful apprentice to come. The next day, Palpatine passed a new Security Act through the Senate. The amendment officially transferred control of the Jedi High Council from the Senate to the Chancellor, granting him the constitutional authority to disband the Jedi Order. It also stripped the Jedi and the Senate of any oversight of the Republic's military, placing the Chancellor in direct command and declaring him Supreme Commander of the Republic military. The Jedi became increasingly wary of Palpatine, concerned about the implications of his near-absolute control over the Republic. The fact that Palpatine was willing to accept powers granting him ultimate authority over the Jedi was deeply troubling to the Order. This didn't unsettle Palpatine, though, as he sought to further strengthen his bond with Anakin by appointing him as his personal representative on the Jedi High Council, further unsettling the Jedi, who saw it as an overreach of his power. Although Anakin gained a seat on the council due to this, he was denied the rank of Jedi Master. "You are on this council, but we did not grant you the rank of Master." What? The war, along with a Jedi's involvement in it, had already sown seeds of distrust in Anakin's mind, especially after witnessing several Jedi, including his own Padawan Ahsoka, leave the Order out of disillusionment. This distrust was further compounded when Obi-Wan revealed that the Council had approved Anakin's appointment to the Council primarily to spy on Palpatine, a task Anakin saw as treasonous but reluctantly accepted. Palpatine, with direct access to Anakin now, continued to manipulate him. He convinced Anakin that the Jedi were holding him back because of his power. When Anakin shared his fears about Padme dying in childbirth, Palpatine, claiming to have knowledge that could save Padme, persuaded Anakin to consider the Sith's teachings on life preservation. In a critical moment, Anakin realized that Palpatine was Darth Sidious, the Sith Lord they had been searching for. Palpatine confirmed this and tempted Anakin to join the Sith. Though Anakin briefly considered killing Palpatine, he chose to report him to the Jedi Council instead. Anakin, struggling with inner turmoil, informed Master Windu of Palpatine's true personality, and was ordered by Mace Windu to remain in the Jedi Council chamber, while Windu and 3 other Masters, Saesee Tiin, Agan Kolar, and Kit Fisto, went to arrest Palpatine. Upon their arrival, Palpatine, awaiting them, immediately attacked. He quickly killed Tiin, Kolar, and Fisto, leaving Windu to duel him alone. Windu's mastery of Vapad, a unique lightsaber style, allowed him to counter Sidious's dark aura. After an intense battle, Windu disarmed and subdued Sidious. However, Anakin's sudden arrival turned the tide. Right before Windu could kill Palpatine, Anakin decided that his attachment to his wife Padme was too great, and that he couldn't have Palpatine be killed, being the potentially only way to save her. He cut off Windu's sword arm with his lightsaber, leaving him open to Sidious's force lightning. Sidious then quickly kills Windu and solidifies Anakin's turn to the dark side. Sidious had never been this close to death before, although he had planned it as part of his final scheme in order to get Anakin to turn to the dark side. With Mace Windu dead, Sidious told a desperate Anakin Skywalker, now isolated and unable to return to the Jedi Order, that they could save Padme together. Consumed by desperation and guilt, Anakin surrendered to the dark side, kneeling before Sidious and pledging his loyalty. Sidious named him Darth Vader, marking his complete betrayal of the Jedi. With this, Sidious now had his star pupil, which he had groomed for since the invasion on Naboo, the Chosen One, set to bring balance to the Force, now turned to join the Sith. To prove his loyalty, Darth Vader carried out Operation Nightfall, leading to the 501st Legion to massacre the Jedi at their temple. Vader slaughtered everyone in the temple, Jedi Masters, Padawans, and even the younglings. 1,000 years of planning had culminated in this. What Darth Bane had started with implementing the Rule of Two has come to fruition. The final act of the grand plan, Execute Order 66, was enacted. The clones, who had fought bravely and full-heartedly alongside their Jedi generals for years in the Clone Wars, turned on the Jedi and executed them in cold blood. Almost every Jedi in the galaxy was killed. The revenge of the Sith and Sidious's victory were absolute. After issuing Order 66, Sidious personally visited the Jedi Temple to witness his triumph. In the Room of 1,000 Fountains, he found Vader eliminating the last defenders. Pleased with his apprentice's ruthless efficiency, Sidious praised Vader, declaring his skills unrivaled among the Sith. He then instructed Vader to complete his next mission, eliminating the leaders of the Separatist Council to secure the Empire's control. The Separatist leaders, hiding on Mustafar under Sidious's false promises of reward, awaited further instructions. During a report from New Gunray, Sidious cryptically assured them his new apprentice, Darth Vader, would take care of them. Keeping the channel open, Sidious watched as Vader arrived. The Separatists greeted Vader warmly, only for him to ignite his blade and begin a massacre. Sidious observed with satisfaction as the leaders, including Gunray, were systematically slaughtered. He thought back to a moment 13 years before, where he had remarked to Darth Maul how happy a day it would be when he no longer needed the Neimoidians and their ilk. Finally, Vader carried out Sidious's last order, deactivating the droid armies. A signal broadcast across the galaxy shut down the Separatist forces, officially ending the Clone Wars. The manufactured conflict had served its purpose. The CIS was no longer necessary. Chapter 14: The Birth of the Galactic Empire. The deed had been done. The Jedi were no longer a threat. Palpatine called the special Senate session to announce the Jedi Rebellion, presenting his disfigured face as a symbol of sacrifice for the Republic. Palpatine informed the Senate of the Jedi's alleged plan not only to assassinate him, but also to overthrow the Senate. He accused the Jedi of using puppet senators, which were conveniently those in opposition to him, to foster the government's corruption. He claimed they had orchestrated the separatist movement through Count Dooku and commissioned the clone army through Sifo Dyas, all to stage a sham war designed to weaken the Republic. According to Palpatine, this grand conspiracy aimed to position the Jedi Council to seize more power openly, solidifying their treachery in the Senate's eyes. When Palpatine revealed his plan to maintain emergency powers and reorganize the Republic, the Senate, cowed by fear and seduced by promises of peace, voted unanimously to support him. Armed guards and political pressure silenced dissent, forcing Bail Organa and Mon Mothma to pretend support to stay safe, deeming they could do more good by living to see another day than being dead. The Empire was born, and nothing was going to stop it at this point. Chapter 15: The Last Stand of the Jedi Order. Obi-Wan and Yoda discovered Anakin's betrayal, learning he and his troops had massacred everyone in the Jedi Temple. Despite his reluctance, Obi-Wan was sent to confront Anakin on Mustafar, while Yoda challenged Emperor Palpatine in the Senate building. The duel between Yoda and Sidious showcased both their extraordinary mastery of the Force and lightsaber combat. Initially evenly matched, with every clash of their blades, Sidious grew more frustrated and unsettled, surprised by the Jedi Master's skill. Yoda's focus and expertise proved too much for Sidious, who found himself increasingly overwhelmed. The tide shifted further when Sidious lost his lightsaber, forcing him to rely solely on the Force to fend off Yoda's relentless assault, blasting Yoda's lightsaber away with his Force lightning. Two embodiments of the Sith and Jedi struggled in a fountain of lightning as Yoda used tsunamis to deflect the electricity. Focusing his mind, Yoda locked eyes with Sidious, redirecting the Emperor's lightning back at him, much like Windu had done earlier. For a fleeting moment, Sidious felt vulnerable, his strength dwarfed by the small but formidable Jedi Master. The redirected lightning then erupted in a powerful blast, sending both combatants flying apart. Sidious managed to grab onto a Senate pod, securing his position, while Yoda fell several stories below. Though unharmed by the fall, Yoda found himself out of reach and recognized the futility of continuing. Accepting the stalemate, Yoda retreated into exile, breathless and shaken as never before. Sidious reverted the cackling in triumph, his momentary vulnerability replaced by the confidence of victory. The Grand Master of the Jedi Order had taken his shot and failed to beat him. However, his focus shifted abruptly when he sensed Darth Vader might be in mortal danger. Prioritizing his apprentice's fate, Palpatine demanded his shuttle at once. The confrontation between Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Vader ended a lot differently to Palpatine's and Yoda's. Kenobi mortally wounded his former apprentice and left him to die on the fiery shores of Mustafar. However, Palpatine arrived just in time to find Vader severely burned but still clinging to life. Upon seeing the weak and helpless shell laying there, Palpatine was torn between anger at Vader's failure and the immense potential he still represented. After some deliberation, though, he decided to save him. He had spent 20 years turning him toward the dark side. Having him die now would have been a waste. Using the dark side of the Force to stabilize Vader, he ensured his survival until they could return to Coruscant. During the shuttle journey, Palpatine personally worked to keep Vader alive. During the shuttle ride, he thought to himself that perhaps he did hold the merest sliver of affection for Vader that he had never held for Maul or Dooku. The reasoning for this may have lain in Vader's one-of-a-kind potential, realizing that finding another apprentice with comparable power might take decades, if it were possible at all. On Coruscant, Vader underwent excruciating reconstructive surgery. Palpatine ensured Vader remained conscious throughout the painful process, believing the suffering would strengthen him. Outfitted with life-sustaining armor, Vader awoke and questioned the fate of Padme. Palpatine, not fully aware of the truth himself, convinced Vader that his own actions had caused her death, shattering Anakin Skywalker's spirit completely. Consumed by grief and rage, Vader destroyed the operating theater and briefly attempted to strike down Palpatine. However, his weakened state left him powerless. Accepting that Palpatine was his only remaining ally, Vader fully embraced the Sith. Chapter 16: The Rise of the Galactic Empire. With the rise of the Empire, the institutions of the Republic were dismantled and reshaped in a process called imperialization. Coruscant became the Imperial Center, and the Galactic Senate was renamed the Imperial Senate. The Republic's military branches became the Imperial Army and Navy. The Jedi Temple, the symbol of security for the Republic for years, was modified into the Imperial Palace for Palpatine, making a mockery of the Jedi, that their symbol of strength was now his palace. He made sure to modify certain areas of the temple as well to further discredit the Jedi, painting them as the traitors of the Republic and starting to wipe their legacy off the face of the galaxy. In time, the Jedi should be forgotten by the galaxy, only to be known by distant whispers and old legends. Palpatine's pledge on the Declaration of a New Order to bring the entire galaxy under Imperial control was fulfilled. In the Empire's first year, the military launched a series of campaigns across the Mid and Outer Rims, later known as the Reconquest of the Rim. He also gave in to the request of the creation of the Death Star, a weapon powerful enough that its mere presence should squash any uprising against the Empire dead in its tracks. As Order 66 didn't kill every last Jedi, Palpatine had the Inquisitorius, with Vader at the helm, created to hunt down any remaining Jedis in the galaxy. To further mold Vader into a true Sith, Vader was guided in Sith lore. As was tradition with the Siths, Palpatine didn't teach Vader by simply teaching him what he knew. Rather, he had a lot of different missions and traps set up that Vader should come out of stronger or perish trying. His apprentice was a lot weaker now due to his cybernetics, but still, he could fill the role of apprentice to him just fine should he be able to pass all the challenges he'd set up for him. As a next order of business, the clones, seen as futile and too expensive, were slowly decommissioned and replaced by the Imperial Stormtroopers, consisting of recruits from across the galaxy. Palpatine also had the Imperial Security Bureau founded as a secret police force. The ISB acted as a counterbalance to Imperial intelligence and installed political officers in the military to ensure loyalty. The Empire's rule was defined by suppression and fear, consolidating power under Emperor Palpatine's authoritarian regime. Civil liberties were cut, dissent was ruthlessly silenced, and a culture of surveillance kept the populace in line. Through organizations like the Imperial Security Bureau and the Coalition for Progress, the Empire monitored and controlled nearly every aspect of daily life, ensuring loyalty and obedience from its citizens, while in turn providing protection and control. Non-human species faced systemic exclusion from power and privilege, reflecting the Empire's human-centric policies. Atrocities became commonplace as powerful governors such as Grand Moff Tarkin employed the Tarkin Doctrine to maintain control through fear. The Empire was here to stay, just like Palpatine had envisioned it when he sought out on the quest to conquer the Republic. Chapter 17: The Secret Apprentice and Whispers of a Rebellion. Years into the Empire, it was flourishing. The Empire had absolute control over the entire galaxy and were the commanding force from the core all the way to the Outer Rim. Although there had been several assassination attempts on Palpatine's life during that time, he had survived each one. Vader also had proven himself time and time again to be a worthy apprentice. His goal now was to make sure that he could have his empire go on forever. Thus, Plagueis' goal at immortality also started to be of even greater interest to Palpatine. However, there were also other issues at hand. The Imperial Senate had traitors among them, some of whom were rumored to be taking part in organizing a rebellion against the Empire as they disapproved of their methods. He had already stripped the Senate of a lot of authority, having them basically be mere representative figures of the different systems without any real say on important matters. He also rarely attended Senate sessions, only attending those that absolutely called for his presence to spin the narrative in his favor. Thus, hearing that there were traitors among them was plausible. During the same time, he was informed by his agents that Vader had a secret apprentice called Galen Merrick. As was the tradition for Siths, Vader seemed to have started plotting against him, growing tired of Palpatine's constant games with him. However, although angry at first, Palpatine saw this situation as one that could be turned into an advantage for himself, an opportunity to test Vader or even replace him. He revealed to Vader, just like to Dooku with Ventress, that he was aware of Vader's secret apprentice and that he should kill him immediately. Vader, knowing he had no other choice, killed Starkiller while Palpatine watched through the holonet. However, Vader didn't give up that easily. Although he mortally wounded Merrick, he made sure he survived and nursed him back to health. Palpatine, though, once again one step ahead, was aware of Vader's action. But this time he saw yet a bigger opportunity with Galen Merrick rather than just testing Vader. He had Vader lead Merrick to believe that he should gather the enemies of the Emperor to form an alliance against the Empire. Then, together, they could overthrow and topple Palpatine. Galen Merrick did as asked, but after gathering the senators and other high-ranking officials that were planning to form the alliance, he was betrayed by Vader, being revealed that it was merely a ploy to capture all of Sidious's enemies in one place and arrest them. Mon Mothma, Bail Organa, and several others were then arrested, and Starkiller was left for dead after a duel with Vader. The Emperor's most formidable political rivals, Senators Bail Organa, Mon Mothma, and Garm Beliblis, were captured and brought aboard the incomplete Death Star. Palpatine reveled in the thought of how they would be ruthlessly interrogated, tortured, and executed as traitors to the Empire. However, just as he prepared to enact his grim plan, Merrick suddenly showed up on the Death Star. Merrick had infiltrated the battle station with the goal of rescuing the rebel leaders. Reclaiming his true identity and recalling fragments of his past, Galen Merrick cast aside his Sith name and embraced his legacy as a Jedi, now fully committed to the rebellion's cause. Merrick confronted Vader and defeated him, only to be tempted by Palpatine to kill his former master and take his place. Resisting the dark side, Merrick chose to protect his allies instead. When Palpatine unleashed Force Lightning on the Senators, Merrick sacrificed himself, using his body to shield his comrades from the Emperor's Force Lightning. In his final act, Merrick unleashed a powerful Force explosion, destroying much of the throne room and enabling the rebel leaders to escape. Merrick's death left Palpatine enraged and disappointed, as he had hoped to replace Vader with Merrick as his apprentice, seeing Vader being beaten by Merrick. Instead, Merrick's martyrdom inspired the fledgling Rebel Alliance, solidifying its resolve against the Empire. The Rebel Alliance was born on that day, and Sidious couldn't stop it. Chapter 18: The Rebel Alliance. The Rebel Alliance, although fully active and formed at this point, Palpatine saw as more of a nuisance at this moment. The Imperial military stretched to the furthest points of the galaxy, and these insurgencies could be easily dealt with in his mind. There were more pressing matters at hand. From the start, Palpatine sought to eliminate the Senate, the last standing symbol of the Republic. Over time, Palpatine carefully stripped away the Senate's power, waiting for the perfect moment. By 0 BBY, with his political system fully in place, military loyalty secured, and the Death Star operational, he was ready to act. Warrants were issued for the arrest of all suspected rebels among the senators, and stormtroopers stormed the Senate, detaining hundreds. Those with confirmed rebel ties disappeared without a trace. Palpatine had effectively destroyed the Constitution, establishing a new power structure with himself at the top, followed by the Grand Moffs, and governors, with each owing their positions and allegiance to the Emperor. The Death Star became the ultimate symbol of the new order, surpassing even Palpatine himself. After years of research and development, it was ready to demonstrate its power, but Palpatine didn't anticipate how its discovery would embolden the rebellion. At Scarif, his forces suffered a catastrophic defeat, as the Death Star plans were stolen by the Rebel Alliance in one of the biggest displays of power from their side. The destruction of Alderaan, ordered by Tarkin and approved by Palpatine, was a pivotal moment. Though Palpatine publicly expressed sorrow for the loss of the planet, he used the event to justify further persecution of the rebellion, claiming Alderaan was secretly developing bioweapons. All this couldn't stop the Rebel Alliance, though. Rather, it made them more determined than ever. Chapter 19: Galactic Civil War. The destruction of the Death Star at the Battle of Yavin was a significant blow to the Empire. Palpatine was outraged that his symbol of strength had evaporated into space dust, and several of his high-ranking officials perished on the station. Palpatine responded by punishing those responsible for the failure, including demoting Vader and ordering harsh reprisals against several officers. During this time, he had Vader tested repeatedly again, this time by having several enhanced cyborgs created with the sole task of killing Vader to become his new apprentice. Vader, though, succeeded in defeating these cyborgs, passing his test once again. During a meeting on the newly constructed Super Star Destroyer Executor, Palpatine revealed to Vader that he'd always planned for him to be his ultimate apprentice, that all the apprentices before him had only served the purpose to set the way for him, complimenting Vader on his resolve to stay by his side. Moments later, he also discovered that Vader had an intensified interest in finding the Force-sensitive pilot who destroyed the Death Star, which was revealed to be his son, Luke Skywalker. Palpatine sensed that Vader's interest could be to try and overthrow alongside his son, but was rather amused at the thought of it, confident that no one could really come close to his power. In the grand scheme of things, Palpatine, despite his role in unintentionally creating the rebellion, remained largely unconcerned about its threat. Although they had destroyed the Death Star, he saw them as a useful tool to further instill martial law across the galaxy. After all, the rebels couldn't truly harm him without the Force. With these thoughts, he gave into order the construction of the second Death Star. Meanwhile, the Galactic Civil War raged on. The rebellion had boldly attacked several Imperial systems and weapons factories and were being hunted down by the Imperial Navy throughout several star systems. After the Empire's victory at Hoth, Palpatine revealed to Vader that he knew about Luke Skywalker being Anakin's son, and that he was becoming a serious threat due to his growing power in the Force. Palpatine intended to either convert Luke to the dark side or eliminate him if necessary. Vader, during his first meeting with Luke, though, failed to convert Luke. Palpatine expressed his disappointment, but allowed Vader to claim some success in influencing Luke's ambition. But the emergence of a powerful Force-sensitive person was a slightly worrisome factor. Chapter 20: Empire's End. To bring the Galactic Civil War to an end and cement his control back, Palpatine devised a cunning strategy to lure the entire Rebel Alliance into a deadly trap. Central to his plan was the construction of the second Death Star, stationed above the forest moon of Endor and shielded by a generator on the moon's surface. During this period, Palpatine engineered several Rebel victories, such as the destruction of a cloaked prototype Super Star Destroyer during an assault on the Fondor shipyards, to bolster the Rebels' confidence and lead them to unwittingly fall into his carefully laid snare at the right moment. Palpatine allowed Rebel spies to discover the Death Star's location while spreading false information that the superweapon was incomplete. In truth, the station's primary weapon was fully operational, and a massive Imperial Navy fleet was stationed to defend it. Both Darth Vader and Palpatine boarded the Death Star confident that the rebels, believing they could destroy the superweapon and kill the Emperor, would seize the opportunity to launch a full-scale assault. Thus, they could crush the rebellion once and for all in a single battle. Confident in the Empire's superiority, Palpatine dismissed reports of the rebel fleet gathering near Sullust when questioned by Vader, deeming them insignificant. He also predicted that the rebels might send a strike team to disable the Death Star's shield generator on Endor, so he ensured both the main entrance and the backdoor bunker were heavily fortified. Furthermore, the generator itself was guarded by an elite legion drawn from the Empire's top military branches, guaranteeing that any strike team would fail to disable the shield before the rebel fleet's arrival. Despite his meticulous planning, Palpatine failed to sense Luke Skywalker's presence aboard the shuttle Tidarium. When Darth Vader informed him of Luke's presence, Palpatine was genuinely surprised that Vader could sense what he had not. Nevertheless, after ensuring Vader's focus, he tasked him with capturing Luke, confident the young Jedi would willingly confront them. True to Palpatine's foresight, Luke, believing his father could be redeemed, surrendered and was brought to the Death Star. During their encounter, Palpatine learned of Yoda's death through probing Luke's mind and mocked the fallen Jedi Master. To flaunt his power, he freed Luke from his binders with a flick of his finger and dismissed his royal guards, declaring his intent to make Luke his Sith apprentice. When Luke hinted at the Death Star's imminent destruction, Palpatine smugly revealed his foreknowledge of the rebel plans and how he manipulated them into a trap. As the Alliance arrived, Palpatine unveiled his trump card. The Death Star's super laser was fully operational, much to Luke's shock. As the rebel fleet suffered devastating losses and Luke's frustration mounted, Palpatine goaded him into a duel with Vader. Luke initially restrained his anger until Vader, probing his thoughts, discovered the existence of his sister Leia. Vader's suggestion of corrupting her enraged Luke, driving him into a frenzy. In the ensuing duel, Luke nearly killed Vader, severing his mechanical hand, but ultimately resisted his anger, throwing aside his lightsaber. Palpatine then realized as the situation was unraveling. The rebel fleet had rallied against his forces, and the shield generator on Endor had been destroyed, leaving the Death Star vulnerable. Despite these setbacks, Palpatine remained confident. He had issued orders to destroy Endor as a contingency, and believed his ultimate victory lay in either turning Luke to the dark side or keeping him as a prisoner. However, as with his earlier failure with Galen Marek, Palpatine's overconfidence would once again prove his undoing. Luke refused to join him, declaring himself a Jedi like his father before him. Sidious couldn't quite believe it, but decided to unleash his wrath upon Luke Skywalker. Simply killing the young Jedi would not suffice. He had to suffer for his defiance. Raising his arms, the Emperor unleashed a relentless barrage of Force lightning that brought Luke to his knees. Untrained in countering such an attack, Luke struggled to defend himself. Sidious mocked him mercilessly, calling him weak and foolish, as he gradually increased the power of the assault, prolonging Luke's agony. The Emperor also intended for Vader to pay for his perceived betrayal. He envisioned forcing his apprentice to carry his son's lifeless body to the core shaft and cast it into the abyss. When Vader staggered to his feet and returned to Sidious's side, the Emperor saw it as proof of his continued loyalty. Yet Sidious had forgotten what had initially drawn Anakin Skywalker to the dark side, the desperate need to save those he loved. He never anticipated that Vader would defy him to protect his son. Without warning, Vader grabbed the Emperor from behind, pinning his arms and lifting him off the ground. Palpatine writhed in shock and pain, unleashing wild bursts of Force lightning that scorched the throne room, damaged Vader's life support systems, and seared his own body. The Emperor screamed both from the agony of his own bolts and the crushing grip of Vader's cybernetic limbs. In a final, defiant act, Vader hoisted Sidious high above his head and hurled him into the reactor shaft. Palpatine plummeted into the abyss, discharging lightning even as he fell. Upon striking the reactor, his body erupted in a massive surge of dark side energy that engulfed the throne room before dissipating down the chasm. Emperor Palpatine, Darth Sidious, the Sith that fulfilled the grand plan, who wiped out almost every Jedi and conquered the Republic, was dead. Moments later, Anakin Skywalker, grievously wounded by the ordeal, succumbed to his injuries. With their deaths, the unbroken lineage of the Sith Lords that had persisted since Darth Bane was finally ended, fulfilling the prophecy and restoring balance to the Force.